Welcome to episode 17 of the Today I Am Sober podcast with your host, Liz W. Today on the show, we're talking all things rapid transformational therapy with Sally Garozzo. You're going to learn what RTT is, how it can help you, whether it's for you or not, and what to expect. Enjoy the show. If you like this episode, please head over to iTunes and give us a rating or a review. See you on the other side. Today on the show, I'm joined by Sally Garozzo. Now, Sally has, shall we say, an interesting life. The first half of her life was all about finding joy through singing and songwriting. In fact, if you look for Sally on Spotify, you will find her. So I'll be sure to make sure that in the show notes, we've got a link to one of Sally's songs. After a career in singing and songwriting, Sally went on a self-development journey, and she's now a rapid transformational therapist. So Sally, welcome to the show.
Hello, Liz. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your show today.
Oh, you're welcome. Now listen, what is rapid transformational therapy?
So, Liz, RTT is a 2-hour process done under hypnosis that is designed to get to the root of your issue, your problem, your symptom, so that you can deeply understand it. And once you've understood it, you get clarity. Once you've understood the whys, why you have it, where did it come from? Because nothing happens by accident. You don't get these symptoms by accident, whether it be a drinking issue, whether it be weight gain, whether it be an autoimmune disease, whether it be fear of heights, or fear of, somebody came to me yesterday with fear of pooing, would you believe it? And I'm like, okay, this is going to be an interesting one. These fears, these issues, they're not random. They have a source, they have a cause, a reason, and a root. And in RTT, when you are under hypnosis, because it's done under hypnosis, when you're in hypnosis, your mind is wide open. Your visualization, your imagination, but because you're relaxed, you have access to memories that you perhaps wouldn't have access to just in the normal waking state. And when you go to these memories in hypnosis, it induces an emotional response, and it's that emotion that leverages us to be able to get clarity. Really, it's the fire that we have. So when we go to a psychotherapist, for example, we'll be talking about our issues, but we might not have the same sort of emotional response, because when we're talking, we're in the beta brainwave state, which is, very much awake. And so we can very easily block our feelings and emotions when we're just talking. But when we're very relaxed and when we're in hypnosis, we can access our emotions much more. And as you know, with drinking, for example, you're sort of suppressing those emotions. But in order to heal, we really need to allow ourselves to open up and to feel those emotions. So there's a saying, if you can feel it, you can heal it. And so that's why RTT is so powerful, because it's a combination of hypnotherapy and psychotherapy. We look back at your childhood, we analyze, but we do it under hypnosis, which is why it's so powerful. And then once the client has got a real understanding of why they are the way they are, what happened to them, and how that led to the dysfunction in their life today, they can really learn to start to learn to make peace with it. So part of the RTT journey is learning to accept what happened to them, and to learn that it wasn't actually their fault. Because I think a lot of people who come to me, especially with addictions, carry so much self-blame, a lot of shame, a lot of self-loathing, a lot of deep sort of inner self-disgust, for want of a better word. That's quite a strong word, but actually I've seen it. And alcohol, for example, is a great fixer for those emotions. It's a wonderful short-term solution, but that's just it. It's a short-term solution. It's not sustainable. So when we, I've digressed a little bit there, but when we look at those scenes, when we get clarity, when the client feels a sense of, oh my God, it's actually not my fault that I have this problem, they can then start to untether themselves from the past. And what you find is a lot of clients who have addictions also feel trapped in their everyday life. They feel very helpless as well, and that's a massive driver of that behavior. And you know, a lot of my clients who have experienced trauma in their lives will have taken through this feeling of helplessness into their adult life, this feeling of powerlessness, helplessness, feeling of being trapped. And again, that is a massive driver to make the person drink or eat loads of sugar or go out and find sexual relationships or whatever the addiction is. So I know I'm banging on about it a little bit, but there's so much to the RTT process. It's a little bit, I don't want to give too much away, because actually it's like ruining a movie. Sometimes you don't want somebody to tell you too much about the movie. You just want to go and see it, and you want to go and experience it for yourself. But there's lots of things that we do, lots of processes that we do under hypnosis, which helps the client to really untether themselves from the past, so that when they were a child they might have been helpless, but now they're an adult, they're not helpless. They have power, they have choices, they have many more options than they perhaps would have done when they were a child, when this sort of addictive behavior might have started. But of course it might not be childhood, it might be young adulthood, or it might be adulthood. You know, menopause as well can drive a lot of women to drink and start or initiate some very unhelpful behaviors. So at the end of the RTT session, I give my clients a 20-minute recording, which is really what rewires the brain, because the brain is very plastic. You know, your brain, like your muscles, can learn, it can change. So it's a 2-hour process, but I don't just send my clients home and that's it. They get coaching with me, plus they also get this recording. So at the end of the treatment, once the client sort of feels more settled, we've got massive clarity, I've installed this new language, they get a recording of this new language, which then they can listen to every single day for the next 30 days minimum, to help the rewiring process. So it is rapid for some people, but for other people, you know, they might need more than one treatment, they might need 2, they might need 3 treatments. I don't normally do more than 3 treatments unless there's been a lot of trauma or PTSD. But it can be rapid, but not for everybody. Some people do need a little bit more external support as well. They might need ongoing therapy as well as you know, this RTT process. So there we go, Liz, in a nutshell. I've been talking about 10 minutes there.
So listen, the only time I've ever been hypnotized that I can remember, maybe I've been hypnotized, no, it's the only time, I'm sure it's the only time. I once went back in the, it must have been the 2000s. I can't tell you the year because I was drinking for most of the 2000s. And the timeline of the 2000s is a complete blur. But I decided I wanted to stop smoking. So I went to an Alan Carr session for a day. And at the end of it, they hypnotized me. And I didn't smoke for 3 months after that. And that's my only memory of being hypnotized. And it did, in fact, bring about a change. But one of the things I've always been worried about with hypnosis is one of my biggest fears is being embarrassed. I hate being embarrassed with a passion. You know, the worst thing you can do to me is put me in a situation where there could be any form of embarrassment. So, which is why I don't like public recognition, for example. You know, give me an award and make me go on stage to collect it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. I don't like it. And one of the fears I have around hypnosis is that I'm going to do or say something which is going to embarrass me. So how do you not embarrass people? Because obviously when you're under hypnosis and you're, you know, as you said, you're enabling people to feel things, and potentially it's the first time they felt them. How do you ensure that they're safe in that kind of hypnosis?
Well, they're perfectly in control. And this is the thing, when you're, first of all, I'm not a stage hypnotist. So I don't do it in public. There's just me and the client. So that's going to help them feel safe and secure as well. There's nobody else watching. And the thing that most people don't realize is they are perfectly in control. So it's literally like watching a movie. You're really engrossed in the movie. And if you need a wee, you can get up and go for a wee. There's nobody chaining you down. You have that choice. That choice is still available to you. So my clients could, if they wanted to, open their eyes, even though they believe that they can't, they could. And they can say what they want. They can hold back tears if they really try hard enough to hold back the tears. But I'm there to encourage my clients to let go. So the words that I say might help the client to feel safe enough to let go. And that's what I normally try to create, that environment, because it's a therapeutic environment. The client's there because they want to change. The client's there because they want to get rid of this addiction or whatever it is, this unhelpful behavior. And in order to do that, there's got to be a certain willingness for them to actually go there to that emotion to release. So my clients don't ever put themselves up for doing something they don't want to do. And I think that's where they feel safe and secure in that sense.
Now, I find it really interesting that one of the things you just said was that being under hypnosis is kind of like watching a movie. And I can totally see that, because when you're working with your clients, I imagine that what you're doing is you're asking them to go back to portions of their life to find out where situations arose that caused the fear, or the reason for why they've come to you for help. Now, interestingly, earlier you were talking about movies and said, you know, you don't want to see the ending. Well, actually, listeners, I want to know what the end of a film is. So I don't go see any films or read any books until I know what the ending is, because I don't like the element of surprise. I know. I'm just such a safety girl. It's really quite boring.
Interesting. Yeah.
I'm sure someone could psychoanalyze me for why that is. Maybe it's to do with that fear of embarrassment. Who knows?
Feeling of being out of control, perhaps. You don't like being out of control.
No, I don't. Which is ironic, because, you know, one of the things you were talking about a moment ago was about how people drink to change the way they feel. Now, I completely drank to change the way I feel, because you were talking about emotions and about how people suppress them. And I completely suppressed my emotions through drink, because they felt so big and so overwhelming. And there was a whole load of blame and shame associated with me. And my inner critic had an absolute field day with all of that mess and that yuck and that ugh. And that, you know, you called it deep inner disgust. And I think that's a really great way of describing it, because that's how I felt about myself. And, you know, drinking allowed me to suppress all of those emotions. But the thing is, I'm a bit like a pressure cooker or a volcano. I can suppress things for so long, but then what happens is, and I love volcanoes because I did A-level geography, and it was my favourite subject. And the thing with volcanoes is, if they don't spout out the top and have a great big, they find I can't remember the technical name, but they come out the side of the volcano and little kind of spurts come out. And that's what happened to me is, you know, I would suppress my emotions, but they would always find a way to come out. And the thing is, they're come out in a really inappropriate way. And the thing I've talked about this before, but the thing I would be angry about and verbally be angry about was never actually the real reason I was angry.
Yeah.
It was always a
deflection,
complete deflection.
yeah.
So
yeah, you see that a lot. I mean, that's road rage as well, isn't it? It's sort of misdirected anger. Yeah,
I know, exactly. But ironically, since I've become sober, I don't get road rage anymore, because I just think, do you know what? You're clearly having a really bad day or a bad moment, and that's your stuff, not my stuff. And actually,
well, that's the beauty of sobriety, isn't it? It gives you the clarity that you were never able to see before, because you were sort of putting a lid on it. You know, it's the same with sugar. Sugar will suppress your emotions. Random sex will suppress your emotions. Whatever your drug of choice, whether it's shopping, whatever, it's going to suppress your emotions. But when you start taking the lid off, you have to deal with all of those emotions. But once you have dealt with them, you get a peace and a calm and a clarity, which no amount of drink can ever give you.
Exactly, which is why, one of the things I do, when I mean, let's face it, I'm a normal human being. And I would be lying if I were to say over the last 6 years, I've never had a thought of having a drink. I have. But however, I've been given the tools to know what to do in those situations. And for me, one of the things I have to do is I have to tell someone how I'm feeling. And it's simply that, connecting with someone else and saying what is really going on for me, because I know that the drinking is but a symptom. It's not the real reason. The reason I want to drink is to, if I were to pick up a drink today, it's not because I want a drink, it's because I don't want to deal with something.
Yeah.
So let's go back to RTT. So you've explained what it is and how it works. So basically, clients work with you one-on-one. It's a really safe, lovely space. You put them under hypnosis. They're still in control. They can open their eyes if they want to, though they believe they can't.
That's right.
You obviously do some clever wizardry stuff that isn't clever. Well, it is clever, but we won't go into the wizardry of it, because if the wizardry was understood, it wouldn't work.
Exactly. So
there's some clever wizardry that goes on. And then at the end of it, you put the people that you're working with in a position, I'm paraphrasing, to really kind of understand why they do what they do.
Yeah.
And then you give them the tools to be able to change their thinking around it. Is that correct?
Yeah, and the tools are basically the language. I mean, like, one of your tools was to tell someone how you're feeling. And that's always the first place I start with people. It's acknowledge your feelings. You've got to start there. You can't start adding all of the sort of peripheral self-help. You can't start adding positive affirmations on top of sort of trapped feelings, because it's just like sticking plaster. So you've got to deal with what's there. So the hypnosis, as I said to you earlier, the RTT session is a jump start. It's a jump starting process which helps people who are at the end of their tether, who are completely ready to change, to really take responsibility, to do that. And then we need some longer term strategies to help them in that moment where they might crack, for example. And you've said one which is brilliant: tell someone how you're feeling. So whether you do that through journaling, whether you record it on your dictaphone, whether you do a Facebook Live, if you like visibility, whether you phone a friend, a parent, a sister, your counsellor, whatever you do, get it off your chest, because you can suppress your feelings, but you can never eradicate them. And if you do suppress them for long enough, like you said, they will find other outlets in the form of headaches, road rage, IBS, self-harming, picking, nail biting, whatever. And so telling people how you feel is the first place to go to get that emotion out. But you can also scream into a pillow, you can dance around your front room, you can do some yoga, you can breathe, you can go for a run, do some exercise. And then it's all about, once you've got the emotion out, it's all about then creating a language that you can use in that moment to really help you know that you are not powerless, that you do have a choice and you can make the right choice. I mean, one of the things I like to say, well, like a language thing that I have if I'm about to reach for cake, for example, chocolate cake or, you know, whatever it may be, is, well, I could have this if I wanted to. It's absolutely available to me to have this piece of cake if I wanted to. So there's no denial, but I'm choosing not to. And there is the choice. I'm choosing not to because I am choosing health, I'm choosing wellness, I'm choosing vitality, I'm choosing pain-free joints, I'm choosing a headache-free head, I'm choosing bowels that work properly, I'm choosing to be in a better mood because, you know, that shit puts me in a bad mood, to be honest. Yeah, I'm choosing my best life. So your mind loves making choices. When you're a kid, you know, those choices were probably taken away from you. Maybe you were sort of forced to eat food you didn't actually want to eat, for example, and then, you know, you're going to rebel as you get older. So we love to be in control. We love to make choices for ourselves. And that is very rewarding for our nervous system and our brain and our whole body and our subconscious mind. So when you say I could, you have the option to, but I'm choosing not to because fill in the blanks. That's very, very powerful, that sort of mental setup. And it's definitely worked for me and it definitely works for my clients as well. But you have to practice that.
You know, it's really interesting you say that because I think the big turning point for me in my sobriety was obviously, you know, I work a 12-step program, and the first step is you know, being powerless over alcohol, that my life had become, or we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. And that's the basis of 12-step programs, is admitting powerlessness over your drug of choice. Mine was booze. And as you know, our lives are unmanageable. Now, I struggled with that because I don't think I'm a powerless individual. I'm actually quite a smart woman. I know that the choices that I make determine the outcomes. So one of the switches I made mentally was that when I realized I had a choice over whether or not I drank again, kind of freed me. And knowing that I can choose to pick up a glass of Pinot if I really want to, but choosing not to, made me feel better. And it's exactly the same as what you're saying, isn't it? It's about changing that language, and it's not about the denial. Oh no, you can't have that, love. And that's one of the things that people often talk to me about being sober, is kind of that, what happens when you go out and about and people are drinking around you.
Yeah.
Now, lots of, you know, in my early drinking days, my drinking was very social. At the end of my drinking, most of it wasn't social. It was lonely. I was on my own. I was in my back garden.
Yeah.
And actually, it wasn't about social drinking. But going into social environments, particularly at big times of the year, so, you know, August bank holiday, which, you know, hello, the sun's shining, the barbecue's on, of course I would be drinking, or Christmas time, or birthdays, or friends' birthdays, and, you know, Easter. Oh, let's face it, if there was ever an opportunity to drink, I would find it. So it didn't actually have to be that special a day. It could have just been a Tuesday in February and I would have still had a drink. So it could be any day of the week that I would find a reason to have a drink. However, knowing that I have a choice over whether I drink or not whether anyone else drinks, meant that I could go to social and be in social situations where other people are drinking and not feel a sense of loss, that I'm missing out, that they're doing something that I want to do, that's more exciting, that I want to participate and join in. Because actually, most of the people in my life can drink like normal people. You know, they can have a few too many, they'll have a hangover, and then they won't have a drink for weeks, and they won't get in that same, you know, won't get drunk again. Whereas I'm not that kind of drinker. You know, I can't have a glass or two of anything. I've never been able to have a glass or two of anything. I'm like that with lots of things. I'm an addict through and through. Cut me in half and I can get addicted to anything. But knowing that I have that choice made social situations and makes social situations really easy for me. A bit like, I can imagine, you know, I would love to not have a sugar addiction. However, I do have a very bad sugar addiction, and I know that for a fact. But I also know I'm not prepared to address it yet. So I've kind of parked that and said, look, you know that's going on, Liz. You know it's not particularly healthy. You know that your behaviour is addictive, but you're not ready to address that yet. And the reason is I know I've got some deep childhood issues there. That's fine. And when I'm ready to address it, I will come to you, I'm sure, my love. Because as we're talking, I'm like, oh my God, I should so talk to Sally about my little sugar addiction.
I'm here when you need me.
Oh, God bless you. Thank you, my lovely. But that language, I think, is really important. And I didn't know that until I experienced it. And I suspect it's the same with your clients, isn't it? You don't know the power of something until you experience it.
When you're being bathed in all of that positive language at the end, honestly, you feel like you're bloody Superman. You're just like, you feel like you're going to explode with you're just so convinced. And, you know, I've had sleep issues recently this year, and it came to a head when I went to Munich the beginning of December, just gone. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't sleep. And then you get obsessed about not sleeping, and then you just get this like stir crazy. I thought to myself, right, what do I know? I know a lot of shit, and I need to put this into practice. And the one thing that I did was, I thought, right, we need to go back to basics here. Appreciation, acceptance and appreciation. And I thought, right, I'm going to get into bed and I'm just going to really, really appreciate my bed. I'm going to appreciate the covers, the feeling of the sheets on my skin, the feeling of just gently being at rest, nothing to do, no pressure. And that place of acceptance and appreciation really put me in a state of nowness. I'm in the moment, I'm in the now. And being in the now, it's all your resistance just goes, and it's like, oh, wonderful. That's so wonderful. And, you know, from there, I think that was about a month ago. I haven't had a single disturbed night's sleep. I've been sleeping all through the night. And I do that process every single night now. Just really feel into the bed, feel into the sheets, just complete gratitude for the end of the day, you know, that sort of thing. I can't remember why I mentioned that, but it's sort of ritualistic. Language. You know, going back to basics, just saying things, especially at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, your mind is so open to suggestion. Your subconscious mind is starting to come alive while your conscious mind goes offline, you know, when you get into bed. And so whatever is there subconsciously is gonna start coming up. So if you can just soothe yourself a little bit at nighttime, you're going to feel a lot better when you wake up. So, you know, language is everything. It's everything. When you wake up first thing in the morning, you know, be really appreciative for the sleep that you've had, and just feeling the carpet under your feet, having a lovely stretch, and just talking yourself. Meet yourself where you're at. I mean, if you're feeling down in the dumps, don't say to yourself, I feel amazing, I feel incredible, this day is going to be brilliant. You know, if you're down in the dumps, you have to sort of meet yourself where you're at and go, okay, I feel a bit like shit at the moment, but I know things will get better. I'm doing okay. Look, I'm up. That's a win as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to go and brush my teeth. That's another win. And then just slowly talk yourself into a better feeling place. But language, so key.
So we've talked about, you've kind of mentioned some of the people that you help and the circumstances they have. And it sounds like it's quite varied. So you've talked about people who've had fears and phobias of, it could be flying, it could be pooing, it could be people that have got problems with food, drink, smoking, and it sounds quite varied. But the thing that struck me that you mentioned was the fact that you have to be ready. You have to acknowledge that you've got a problem and then be ready to do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, you said about your sugar addiction, and it reminded me of something, which was a little story that I read in a book. A little story about a dog that's sitting on a pin, and his owner is stood next to the dog, and somebody walks past and says to the owner, "Why is your dog crying?" And the owner says, "He's sitting on a pin and it hurts." And the passerby says, "Well, why doesn't he just get off the pin?" And the owner says, "Well, clearly it doesn't hurt enough yet." So that made me think, wow, that's such a powerful analogy for us. Like, we stay in our familiar, habitual, sticky patterns until our tolerance for them has worn off. And I think sometimes it has to get to a point where it's got bad enough. Once it's got bad enough, then you have the impetus to change. So it's sad, really, that we do that we leave it that long until things get bad enough, but I think it's important, personally, I think it's important not to wait until it gets bad enough. I mean, what is your bad enough going to be? Is it going to be a stroke? Is it going to be a heart attack? Is it going to be Alzheimer's? Is it going to be diabetes? What's your maximum tolerance? I mean, my partner recently had his gallbladder removed and he was in so much pain. And I'm like, is this going to be is this your maximum now? Can you start looking at your lifestyle now? But I generally see clients, because RTT is not cheap. It's not a £30 an hour therapy. It's a bit more expensive than that. So I think, if people are going to make that investment, they're going to make damn sure that they're ready to make that commitment to change as well. So I do think people have to be really invested if they're going to make that investment. Yeah, and it all comes down to your tolerance, really. Has it got bad enough? So yeah, I mean, I work with people at the end of their tether, which is it's sad, because you don't have to get to the end of your tether. It's sad, but it's also wonderful, because when people have got to the end of their tether, they have massive impetus to catapult themselves into almost like a new existence, really. So yeah, I always say to people, raise your standards for yourself, really decrease your tolerance for feeling like shit and raise your standards, and then you won't get yourself into those sticky wickets.
I love that. Absolutely love that. And you said earlier, if you feel it, you can heal it.
Yes.
Now, obviously, so I'm assuming from that, rapid transformational therapy actually heals people because it allows them to address what's going on and come out the other side.
Yeah.
So this podcast is all about joy. So can you tell us any joyful experiences that either you've had or your clients have had as a result of undertaking RTT?
Yeah, I mean, some of my clients have, left narcissistic relationships. They have, got up, and I've got one client at the moment who is sort of in the process of leaving a a mundane job and who is going into the world of singing because she wants to be a singer and get her message out there, and she's slowly starting to do that. I've had people, you know, who have had like really bad anxiety, you know, travel anxiety, and then been able to go on holiday. I've had people who have given up smoking. I've had people who have given up or moderated their drinking, people who have lost weight, people whose finances have improved. I've worked with a lady who had like quite bad money blocks, and she was in business. And since having the RTT treatment and having some coaching as well, she's managed to really bust through her blocks, and her business has gone to the next level. She's got 2 employees working for her now. So yeah, and like even a year later, so she did her testimonial for me a year ago, and a year later she's just still flourishing and flying. I worked with somebody who had chronic fatigue and who was in the army, and she was a real pusher and a real driver. You know, she used to sort of punish herself, and her body just gave up in the end. She just got like massive burnout, loads of anxiety, compulsive eating, and she had been looking for a property to live in. She'd been looking to buy a house, and after the RTT treatment, it all fell into place. So although it wasn't directly related to, I mean, her chronic fatigue improved, and she felt, you know, like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. She was started training again in the gym, but also stuff outside of that started to happen for her as well, because she'd shifted the energy, she'd shifted her mindset, and she'd, you know, moved into this coach house that she'd found. She was looking for 2 years. She just couldn't find the property. She was so frustrated, and then suddenly it all just happened. So it has far-reaching effects. You know, when you change yourself and your circumstances here, it has an effect in your family and the wider community as well.
I completely agree. I think we have a huge ripple effect, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
So listen, Sally, it's been an honour and a privilege talking with you. I could talk to you all day, and I will. In fact, we do need to have a conversation about my little sugar addiction. Because I think it's, you know, 2020 is the year that has to go. So how do people get in contact with you if they want to find out about working with you?
So it's very easy. My website is just my name, sallygarozzo.com, and that's GAROZZO. Or I have a Facebook group which is called the Menopause Mindset. And my Instagram.
We mentioned you on Instagram earlier, didn't we? What's your Instagram?
It's Sally Garozzo Mind Mentor.
Fantastic. Sally, it's been an honour and a privilege. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Liz.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Today I Am Sober podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I love your feedback. So come and find me on social media. All of the links are in the show notes. Until next time, bye.